tonight. That's probably why, yeah, it's probably the time.
I'm impressed that you're here.
Half an hour.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll leave it to you.
Yes.
I'll dig in.
Thank you. All right, let's get started. Ben, would you mind joining us? That way I don't feel like you're so far away. Okay, so a big welcome, and it's just a pleasure to meet everyone. This session's up to 45 minutes. It doesn't have to be 45 minutes, and it's just that he has a plane to catch, so I'm respectful. You just go ahead and dash out when you need to. So let me just give a little context. So this is an information session, an opportunity for you to just understand the program, give you a chance to ask some questions. So that's the agenda. And also to just make sure you're comfortable participating in this program. There is a commitment of time and energy from your end, so I want to make sure that you feel comfortable about that, and that the timing's right. Sometimes people go, well, maybe I'll do another cohort later, and that's perfectly fine. So I'd rather people are honest up front than sort of feel like they have to participate. So, okay, so the first half of this session, the 45 minutes, is this agenda. Then for those partners that can stick around and would like to know more about the program, I put another 45 minutes aside to give them a really high-level overview of the program, to be able to help them to understand how they can support the people that are participating. So I'm more than happy to catch up for coffee if you want over the next few weeks.
Yep.
Tell you a bit more about it, or have a phone call. But that's the opportunity. So so let's get started. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself. So from 2011 to 2013, I was the National Business Development Coach at KPMG, and during that time, I coached 65 partners and a few directors nationally, and clocked about 600 hours of coaching with those people, and influenced about $12 million of revenue in the second year that I was doing that work. And so that gave me a lot of insights into how professionals tick, and understanding the challenges that many of them faced. And what I learned since leaving KPMG is that those challenges are very similar in the legal space. There are some nuances, but there's a lot of similarities. These are the observations that I made when I was at KPMG, is that many of the partners, their BD efforts were quite ad hoc, and much of their focus was on low value, what I call low value BD activities. There were gaps in their BD skill set. It wasn't that they couldn't do BD, but many of them weren't doing it as efficiently or as effectively as they could, and many of them didn't have a really robust process. Also, many of them had self-limiting beliefs. I mean, most of us have self-limiting beliefs, let's be honest, that were holding them back, and a lack of confidence around business development, because frankly, most of them never became accountants to go out and sell or win work. And I suspect most of you, it's the same thing. You didn't become lawyers to go out and win work, but it is something that's expected of you now. The other things that I saw is they often didn't have a written plan as to how they were actually going to grow their practice and achieve some of the fee goals that were expected of them. And there was also a tendency just to be a bit too passive with both existing and potential clients. So those observations I've continued to see in the legal space with a lot of the clients that I work with, and so you might be able to relate to some of those points. Maybe you're going tick, 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 and that's okay, because this program is not about passing any judgments around where you're at. It's really here to support you, and I'll comment a bit about some of your colleagues who participated in the program in a moment. But so just I guess in overview, in one statement, the program is a proven coaching-based business development program that helps lawyers to be more confident and effective at conducting BD activities. And I just wanted to emphasize this coaching based. So for years, I used to run training sessions where I'd get a group of people like yourselves in a room. We'd do a 1-day or a 2-day workshop, and then you'd go out. And what I found was people would leave with good intentions to put that into practice, but human nature is we tend to fall back into our habitual patterns. And so, so I completely changed our go-to-market strategy and the way we work with clients, and now we use a coaching-based methodology. So I did ask a number of the participants from last year if they would be willing to come, and they all said, Michael, I'd love to come and share my experience, but it was either they were working from home today, or they'd flown up to Sydney for the partners conference, or it was just bad timing. So so many of them said, I'd be very happy to have a chat. So here are the graduates from last year's program. I suspect most of you would know some of these people, maybe even all of them. And so if you do have any questions and you want to do any more due diligence, feel free to reach out to them and have a chat, ask them about their experience, because what I can say is that they all benefited, they all enjoyed it, and they all are doing a lot more in terms of business development. In fact, when I called Andrew Stamp and James Deedy to ask them if they would come and speak and share their experience, they started laughing. One of them, Andrew, laughed. He said, well, you did such a good job, Michael, because I'm flying up early to Sydney to have a few BD meetings. But what I can say is this: here are the things that I observed. Well, actually, I'll hold sharing some of that because I want to just show you the program. So the goal of the program is to really equip you with high-performance business development habits. I know that habits are the key, so my goal is to help you to develop really strong business development habits. Now, many of you and many of the people that I work with, business development isn't really part of their routine yet, or it's a bit ad hoc. So one of the goals is to really build in some discipline so it becomes part of your daily routine. And what I suggest is we start really small, like even just 15 minutes a day can make a massive difference if you're doing it every day. So the three things that we focus on are mindset, skill set, and discipline. And I know that what I found is that if we can get all of those three things happening, those build strong business development habits. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just explain the program. So this slide just gives you an overview of the program, and I might just pause because I think Tony might be joining us partway through this and was going to share a few words. So Mel, when he arrives, if you want to just interrupt me at any point. I meant to say that at the beginning. I just remembered now.
I think he's there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's arrived.
Yeah, I've been here since the start. Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone.
Hey. My eyesight's getting worse, Tony.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Congratulations, all of you, on being invited to participate in this program. Really, just to reiterate what Michael has said, the ability to develop business is really fundamental to the firm's success and to the success of our teams and to the success of all of us as professionals. And it is something that doesn't come naturally to many of us. It's not something that we're trained to do. It's probably not the reason most of us started out in law. But we think that you all are future leaders of the firm, and we want to help you be successful as you can be. And that's why we are delighted that you're chosen to participate in this program. The great thing about this program is that it does, to a large extent, demystify business development, I think. Michael's approach is very simple and accessible and structured, and we have found with the people that have been through the program already that it can make a real difference in a very short period of time. So as Michael said, we ran the program last year, and all of the people that participated have noticeably changed in their approach to business development and have had success as a result of that change. So yeah, I really endorse Michael and the program. We really look forward to your active participation. For the partners here, we'd love you to support the people in the program with their business development activities, and hopefully over time it becomes how we do things across the whole business. I'd like us to be learning from each other for it to become just part of being a senior lawyer at Hall & Wilcox. Yeah, that's all I was really going to say, Michael, unless I've missed anything. But great to have you.
Great. No, that's fantastic, and I just really appreciate your support to the program and all the partners that are involved. So I'll explain that now. So this slide here just gives you a chronological overview of the program. So clearly, starting on the left side, today is the information session, opportunity for you to just understand the program at a high level and get a gist of what's going to be expected of you and what support you can expect from the program. Once we kick off, which you'll be receiving invitations for a three-way conversation. So the conversation will be with your sponsoring partner, yourself, and the coach, which will either be myself or one of my team members. And that person, so that the purpose of that three-way conversation is to just socialize your aspirations in terms of business development. So, if it was yourself, Ben, what we would be asking is, what would you ideally like to achieve over the next 6 months as a result of participating in this program? And because I don't know you yet, I have no idea if you're being overly ambitious, underly ambitious, given the context of what's going on at work for you. So having that partner involved who does have that context, does know you, can help support the conversation in terms of saying, I think you're being a little too ambitious there. Let's scale that back to make sure that it's realistic. So what we want to do is we want you to set some stretch goals around business development. We want you to set some activities that we can measure in terms of before and after, and we can see that you're making progress that way. But the idea is just to understand what would success look like for you, and for each of you it's different. So that's the purpose of the three-way conversation. We then back end that with a three-way conversation at the end of the program to review what you had set out to achieve. So there's certainly some accountability in terms of knowing that we're going to have that conversation in 6 months. And there is, I think, certainly one of the things I wanted to add is that there isn't a huge expectation that you're going to be bringing in massive revenues for the firm in that 6 months. Our focus is really on helping support you to embed the right kind of behaviors. So getting those habits, because we know if you're doing the right activities on a regular basis, the results follow. As part of the pre-program, there's a couple other things that we will be doing. Is you'll receive a small survey electronically, which we then also survey you at the end of the program. So we'll ask you the same questions, and we can look at have we actually moved the dial in terms of where you were and where you are at the end of the program. We do formalize your goals into a coaching plan, and all of that's shared with your sponsor. Okay, so that's the pre-program, and then we'll kick off the program with a group session followed by a one-on-one sessions, and there's usually a 2-week difference between them. So there'll be a group session once a month, a one-on-one session once a month. The group sessions are 90 minutes in length, and the one-on-one sessions are an hour. And the group sessions are an opportunity for you and your peers to share your experiences. So I'll start off the sessions by asking you to share, where do you feel you're making progress? What insights or learnings have you had since we last caught up? And where do you feel you're getting stuck or challenged? And we often use it as a forum to support one another and to share ideas and what's actually working. What I observed last year with the Sydney and the Melbourne cohorts, which was really exciting, was although many of them knew each other, they didn't really know each other. And as a result of catching up in this forum, everyone got to know each other a lot better and started to feel a lot more comfortable being able to introduce each other to respective colleagues, so in terms of our respective clients. So there was some cross-referring happening that probably wouldn't have happened in the past. And also they just started to feel more comfortable understanding what that person did, because they got to hear more of that from them during the process. So that was certainly a real bonus. But they also really enjoyed just the camaraderie of the discussions and what came out. And it was, both groups were really kind of sad when we wrapped it up at the end because they were enjoying it so much. So it was good. The one-on-one sessions are an opportunity for you to be really selfish and get some individualized support to help you in terms of your own journey. And as part of the program, one of the first things that we do is we'll be supporting you to actually form some kind of business development plan, and we have a 2-page template for that, and helping you to then execute that strategy in terms of growing your practice. So that's in essence the program. So we're alternating between group and individual sessions, and then at the end we have the last group session is a celebration, and we get together and we invite Tony and other stakeholders back to that. So the sponsoring partners get an opportunity to come along and hear from you collectively what sort of success you had. And Tony, did you want to maybe share some of your observations from sitting in on that cohort from the Melbourne group?
Well, yeah, nothing really specifically, Michael, other than just reinforcing what I said before, that
yeah,
there were some really good stories that were told. It seemed like there had been a real transformation in the way that a number of the participants approach business development, and it just felt much more familiar to everyone, I think. Much less daunting and much more there every day. So, yeah, it was a real celebration. There were some great stories that people could tell, that people told. Yeah, that's really all.
Yeah, great. I just thought I'd offer the opportunity to share. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of that slide, you can see that we're focusing throughout the program on mindset, skill set, and discipline. We're also be sharing a number of resources with you. So I wanted to talk about that now. So one of the resources is this book, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. So what you'll be receiving that shortly. In fact, they're just sitting on the table over here because I brought them in today, and Narissa's going to kindly distribute them all to you, so you'll have them over the next few days. And we'll be using that as a core reference for the program. And so there's some concepts in there and some frameworks that we'll be referencing. So I'll be asking you to read a couple chapters before each group session. In addition, you'll also get a couple toolkits. One is the BD Accelerator Toolkit, and the other is the BD Accelerator Networking Toolkit. And so these are contain really practical resources, templates, examples to make it easy for you to be able to put into practice some of the things that we're talking about. One other thing that I'm quite excited to share that's it's in production at the moment is I've actually created a video series to accompany the program. So there'll be a video library talking about some of the tools. And so for people who might miss a session, have to be away on holidays or ill, you'll also have access to the video library, which I think is going to be a really nice addition to the program. So I just wanted to go back to a couple. So this is the BD Compass, which is a template for your business development strategy. So there's a number of ways that you can grow your practice, and these are some of the ways that people typically go about growing their practice. So it might be difficult to see that. Hopefully you got better eyesight than I do, because I can't see it. But just I just wanted to mention that part of this process is involving the partners, sponsoring partners. And what I really invite you, partners that are here today, to really to get involved and to offer your support and share your experience, because that's really valuable. And so at the end of every coaching session, I will be sending notes of the coaching sessions to the participants and copying in your sponsor so they can see what we were talking about. So, for example, Ed, if you're, who is it that you're?
Conrad.
Yep. So you'll be able to see Conrad's notes and be able to go, oh, I saw that you caught up with Michael a couple days ago, and you can, if you guys are going out to a meeting, for example, you can talk about preconditioning and those sorts of concepts together and put it into practice, and that's the idea behind the sponsoring partner involved. Yeah. Okay. So just here's a little summary of some of the objectives. So the first thing is to develop your written business development plan, then to identify, prioritize, and execute a baseline of core BD activities on a consistent basis. This is probably one of the things that I'll be banging on and on about is, even if you're really busy, if you can manage to do 15 minutes, 10 minutes a day, if you do something every day and you're doing it consistently, eventually it becomes a habit. And what your colleagues found last year was that they were amazed at how much they could actually achieve in 10 or 15 minutes, and how much that added up when they were doing it every day. Number 3 was to advance some live opportunities. So I'll invite you to come to the one-on-one coaching sessions and even the group sessions to share real live opportunities, and then we work through how you're going to, what's the next step, and prepare for that, and how do you apply the frameworks and methodologies to help you advance those opportunities or advance those relationships. The 4th thing is just really, hopefully you feel really supported by myself and by the actual group. Everyone last year said, what I really enjoyed was just catching up with my colleagues, and I felt really supported because I thought I was the only one who struggled with this, and then in the group sessions everyone's going, no, I'm struggling with this as well. So it was a really constructive and positive environment and atmosphere that was created. So one of the things that we want to really help with is, how do you go out and initiate those coffee conversations and then turn that into a commercial outcome? And the last is, really cultivating those relationships and building your network. And so we'll be talking about how do you leverage LinkedIn as a business development tool to do that. And I'll be illustrating some ways that you can start to expand your network, particularly your referral network, for those of you that perhaps don't have a big network yet, or maybe have moved. That's also a big challenge. Okay, I might just pause there and ask, are there any questions?
Before we start, should we have some sort of vague plan, or do we develop a plan through like in the first session, or?
Yeah, great question, and I'm glad you asked that question. So no, it's not necessarily. It's obviously beneficial if you do have some ideas, but yeah. Part of the program is really about helping you to take often what's up in your head. Many people already have some ideas and they've been doing something, but really putting that down in a more structured way, and also expanding your thinking in terms of perhaps some things that you might not have been previously considered doing as part of your strategy in terms of business. So do not lose any sleep if you haven't got anything and you're coming in cold from a really low base. That's not a problem, and lots of people did, and lots of people really successful. Great question. Any other questions?
One thing which I have seen a lot, is lawyers who, and I'm not singling out Conrad, it's not sort of an oblique way of, sort of pointing at him. But lawyers generally, who don't want to be salesy,
Yes.
and they think that BD is equivalent to sales.
Yes.
In the way that someone sells a car.
Yep.
And I think, perhaps I've always thought of it as in this way. We have a service, a client has a need, and as long as there's trust, and obviously a relationship,
Yeah.
Then it's natural for work to flow.
Yeah.
Now you have to ask, and sometimes you have to be a bit, sort of pushier than the next guy, or you have to, make sure you're there, or you're the last person they saw, or whatever. But if you have those elements, work tends to flow. Whereas I think, a lot of lawyers just think that sales are somehow dirty and not something they really want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested in your thoughts
Yes.
on that, because I think that's quite a big issue for lawyers.
Fantastic question, and it is a massive one. And why? I guess one of the points of difference this program is, I believe the point of difference is that we focus a lot on the mindset. So one of the core concepts that comes out of the book, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play, is first of all, we want to make no okay. So what do we mean by that? We actually want, we don't want to put pressure. So one of the things that many of your colleagues were relieved about was that I'm not really salesy, and I don't believe in pushing and being aggressive. I believe in being assertive, and I think that's the distinction that I've noticed, is that most lawyers, most professionals don't want to be that pushy, aggressive, salesy kind of person. And so the pendulum swings too far the other way, and they're too passive. And they sit back, and the reason they do that is because they don't want to be offensive. They don't want to risk ruining a relationship with a client or a potential client. And so I think there's a nice sort of happy medium. I call it the Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. We don't want to be pushy, yet we don't want to be passive. So I talk a lot about how do we language it, how do we structure it so that you are asking. And so a really good example is often professionals will say things like, please keep us in mind if you ever need any future work. That's a statement. And what I ask people to do is ask a question. Would you be willing to refer us work if you ever had a matter or needed help with X? Question mark. So now that is a call to action. You're now gaining a commitment from the other party. And one of the reasons that people don't do that is because many of us don't want to be rejected. And so we talk about that in the first group coaching session. And one of the things that I've introduced is some work from a Harvard professor named Robert Keegan. He wrote a book called Immunity to Change. And in that book, what he basically documented was his observations and the research that they did, which looked at why people who would, say, participate in a program like this with genuine intentions to change and go out and do business development, yet would not actually take action. And one of the things that they found was that they had competing commitments against the actual intention. So what do I mean by that? So let's, and this is a real example, I've had lawyers who, when we go through that immunity to change process to uncover their unconscious commitments that stop them from doing the things they say they want to do, they have a belief that it uncovers a bunch of beliefs. And so one of the beliefs is, well, if I'm going out and having coffees with people, that must mean I'm desperate for work. Because if I wasn't desperate for work, I wouldn't have to have coffees. Or that must mean I'm a bad lawyer, because if I'm a good lawyer, I'd be winning work. So I don't want to go out and have coffees, because that essentially means that I'm a bad lawyer or I'm desperate. Yeah? So that's just one real example that I've actually had a lawyer actually say, well, that's why I'm not doing it, because I feel like I'm being desperate. And so part of this program is around uncovering some of those things and actually putting them on the table and going, is that a belief that's based in fiction or fact? And let's test it. So, and what I've found is that people start to go, actually, that was just something I believe. It's more based in a fear than in a reality. And so, but the whole methodology of this program is to enable you to go out and conduct business development and still feel in integrity with your own morals and your own values. Because I never would ask people to go out and push something on the client. I don't want you to go out and become salespeople. I do want you to go out and have coffees and lunches and meetings with people, and be confident and comfortable asking the question: is there some, looking over the next 6 to 12 months, is there any work that we could assist you with? How might we be able to help? So one of the core concepts is changing the way we think from going out to sell, which is starts with our intention. Is my intent to sell, or is my intent to help?
Yes.
So if we focus on our intent is to go out and help the client, and that drives a different behavior, because intent drives behavior. So if our intent is to help the client, we behave very differently than if my intent is to go out and sell them something. And so that's really founded in the trusted advisor kind of philosophy. And so everything that I share is about helping you to be able to go out and have conversations to explore if there's mutual value that you can create or add to the client. So is that long-winded answer to your question?
No, that's really, really good stuff. Really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to give people in Perth an opportunity to ask any questions.
Not from us, sorry.
You're right.
Good. All right. Well, we must be doing well. How about Sydney? Any questions in Sydney?
No.
All right. How about Melbourne here? Any other questions? Okay. I know Ed's got to dash to the airport.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Thanks very much.
So we might just start to wrap this up. So what are the next steps? The next steps is, to confirm your participation. If you decide that this isn't the right program for you, that's okay. Just let Narissa know. But assuming you are all in, the next thing is you'll be receiving some appointments for the group and individual coaching sessions from my assistant and from Narissa and her team. And also you'll receive a few documents, the business development coaching plan, which I'll send you before the three-way conversation. Don't sweat it. It just is a draft to get you thinking about what do I want to achieve. So when we get together with your sponsoring partner, that conversation is a little easier because you've had a chance to start to think about it. So it's just really a prompt. So if you do a cursory draft of that document and populate it, don't sweat it if it's not perfect. But that's just to start. Then you'll receive the survey as well over the next week. And you'll also receive a copy of the book, which those of you in the room, you can just take one with you. So that's so those are the things that we're in terms of next steps. Any questions about that? Okay, so there is a date, a few dates in the diary for the three-ways. I think that's coming up in the next fortnight, and then we have our first group session, I think, is the 18th of March. And then you'll have individual and group coaching sessions scheduled in for the rest of the year. If you can't make it to one, You know, I just appreciate that you let me know. At least 24 hours notice would be really appreciated. I know sometimes you can't. And we'll do our best to catch you up on what you've missed. And in terms of the one-on-one catch-ups, those are a lot more flexible. So if you do have something come up, usually we can swap with one of your colleagues on the same day, or we can do a make-up some of the time. So that's it in I think, a nutshell in terms of what you can expect from the program. Has that helped give you some clarity around what to expect?
Yes.
Yeah? Good. Okay, so feel free, I've handed out my cards here. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll also be sending some emails, so don't be shy if you have any further questions. Something comes up after today.
I have one question.
Oh, great.
With the Survey Monkey that we did, we get those questions and answers?
The results, would you like those?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's easy. Yep, let me make a note of that. Okay. Any other questions from Perth?
No.
Good, okay. And from Sydney, any other last questions before we wrap up this first half of the session?
All good, Michael, thank you.
Okay, good, okay. So I think Peter is the only partner still standing here. So Peter, do you have time to stick around and talk about the program?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so so if you want to hang on tight while I just say goodbye to people here, but I'll just say goodbye to Perth. So Jill and who else is there? We've got Scott. I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and I look forward to meeting you both soon.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you. Yes, go ahead and help yourself, and that risk carrying them.
I know.
Okay. Look forward to working with you. Okay, take care. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon. Take care. All right. So,
No, just.
Narissa, are you? Sorry, Mel, are you going to stay? Or are you going
I'm
to?
going to head off, Michael.
Yes, I figured you probably have lots to do. So, thanks for joining us.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, Peter, you're lucky. You got special attention now.
Correct. Now we've been through. I've been through this with Jim last year, but I think it seems a bit more structured this time.
Yeah. Well, we've added this component because I recognized last time a number of the partners just had expressed interest in understanding a bit more about some of the concepts. So that's why I thought I'd offer to share some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with the participants, so that you're not in the dark. So we could step through this kind of quickly and let you get on with your day, but feel free to take your time and ask questions wherever you like.
Okay. Can I ask you an initial question, just more on participants? Frank was, in the note I got from Narissa, Frank was part of this as well, and Andrew, I think, was his sponsor. I just wondered, I could ask them, but are they not in the program, or?
Frank declined to be here today, but he is in the program.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I've got Frank, and I think Rachel is the person that you're going to be sponsoring. Is that correct?
Yes, and Rachel was on by phone.
Okay.
She appeared for a few seconds there on the screen, but yes, correct.
Okay. So I'll follow up with Rachel and just touch base with her, make sure if she has any questions.
Right.
Okay. So all right. So let me share with you. I'll go back to sharing screen. Let's see, how do I do that?
I can see it, but it's just got all the
Oh,
slides.
you can.
Yeah, but it's just got all the slides there. It's like a...
How about that?
That's better.
Yeah. Okay. So let me talk you through some of the concepts, because I think you might find this interesting. So I just talked about, not selling and focusing on helping clients succeed, and so I won't go into that any further. I did talk about, being assertive as opposed to aggressive and passive. This concept of win fast, lose fast, you would have observed this, colleagues, and no doubt, it's perhaps happened to yourself, where you invest time talking to people and then find out there was never an opportunity, and there was, so you've invested a lot of time and energy. So one of the things that we want to do is qualify people as best we can. Is there an opportunity or not? And the sooner we find out, the better, so we can win fast and lose fast. Now, I'll caveat that by saying, in many situations, you're investing in developing a relationship, and it may take years before that bears fruit. So it's not that we're not going to do that, but when we do get in front of people, we do want to be asking qualifying questions to understand, is there an opportunity or not? And making no okay is one of the key things that allows us to really qualify opportunities. The title of the book is Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. We often can waste a lot of time talking to people where, particularly Australians, struggle with saying no. So they often won't say no, and they'll kind of keep leading you on, so to speak, and they might say maybe or give you some sense of hope that there's an opportunity when really there isn't.
Mm-hmm. And is that question you introduce as early as possible? Would you refer us work if the opportunity arises?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that historically most professionals are really reluctant to ask that question. So then what happens is they just end up going out and having coffees and lunches with people that never have any intentions of sending them work and never will, and in many cases for valid reasons. So it's about asking the question and making it okay for the other party to say no, that no is okay. So that's a big piece, and I've got some templates on if email samples in the toolkit that give some examples of how to phrase that that they can use as a guide. Okay, so the other number 5 is warm calls versus cold calls. So I'm a huge advocate in most professionals have a network of people that they know, and many of them just don't know, have never thought about asking people in their network for warm introductions, and also are not using LinkedIn to obtain a warm introduction to someone that they don't know currently. And LinkedIn is one of the powerful things about LinkedIn is you can do that really quite easily. You can find who in your network knows that person and reach out to that person and ask for a warm introduction. And I'll give you a really good example. Last year, I was working with a small law firm here in Melbourne, and I was coaching the principals, and they wanted to win some work with the Royal Commission, the Disability Royal Commission, and they sent an email to the person that was making that decision and got crickets. They sent 2 emails and had no response. And I said, well, have you actually put that person's name into your LinkedIn search bar? And he hadn't, so he did that. And it turned out that he had 2 people that he knew who knew that person at the Royal Commission. And one of them, he said, oh, we go back 30 years. And I said, well, how comfortable are you to contact him and ask him for an introduction? He said, really comfortable. So that's exactly what he did. His friend Barry said, listen, send me an email. I'll forward it on to this woman with a couple comments. He did that. He got an immediate response from the woman saying, oh, how wonderful to get an endorsement. Always great to have someone recommended. And they won a piece of work, I think, about 3 weeks later. And that was the start of a whole big piece of work for them. And so, that was an example that I often share because people just don't think about using LinkedIn that way to get warm introductions.
Yes.
So I just wondered if you see that, in the firm.
Being used like that? No, I haven't seen it. I've seen it used for sourcing potential staff.
Yeah.
Not drawing the dots. No, and people may do it, but just not seen it.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple other things. This idea of co-creation. So one of the things I'll show you in a moment is a concept called preconditioning, which is something I get them to do before they go out to meet with someone, to actually start to co-create an agenda or some discussion points for a meeting in advance of the meeting. Now, what I typically see is most people either don't actually send some discussion points or an agenda before a meeting, or they impose what they want to talk to the other person about without asking, is that of interest, or would that be okay? So I'll come back to that in a moment, but this idea of co-creation is something that weaves through the program. And then number 7, just getting more comfortable actually asking questions to gain commitments, similar to what we were talking about earlier, but just there's so many other commitments that they often miss. So they'll finish a meeting and they come to the end of the meeting and they don't even ask, so what are the next steps and when should we next speak and things like that. Number 8, many of the professionals I work with often say, I go out and have coffee chats, but I just really struggle how to turn that into a commercial conversation. I don't want to be pushy and I don't want to be salesy. So that's a big focus of the program, is to help people to go out and have a build rapport quickly and have a nice, pleasant conversation, but actually to have some commercial outcomes, which really requires some frameworks or structuring the conversation so that you get that. And preconditioning is one of the ways that we start that process. So I'll show you in a moment that. And then just this idea, some of them come into the program and are actually quite good at networking or building a network, but many of them have never really put focus on that. It's not something they've thought about intentionally, and many of them, their LinkedIn networks are really quite small, so they might have 50 or 100 connections on LinkedIn, and yet they're about to make partner, or they've just made partner. And so many of them don't understand the power of LinkedIn and why you want to actually connect with people that you know on LinkedIn, and how it's a powerful way to stay front of mind with people and continue to stay in touch with lots of people. And then the last one is, being discerning around, who they are catching up with for coffees, and actually being really strategic around that to form and build referral networks. So does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does.
Yeah. So here are just a couple of the core concepts or frameworks I mentioned a moment ago, and I'll just step you through them quickly. So this is an example of a preconditioning email. Looks like it was addressed to you, Peter.
Yes, well done.
So yeah, I just managed to pull that one off. So there's a couple things in here. All the language is very deliberate, but this is just an example. This is quite a formal example, but you can create more informal ones. But here's a couple things. First of all, you start off the sentence that I'm starting to prepare for a meeting, which sends a message right away to the other party. The second sentence says, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss your business situation, whether you decide to move forward with us or not. And so again, that concept of making no okay, it takes the pressure off. So immediately we're not being presumptive or presumptuous that you know that we can help, and it's okay that if we don't. The next paragraph, at the conclusion of our meeting, I'd like you to feel comfortable deciding whether you'd like to would like to continue exploring how we can work together or not. That's what's called the end in mind decision. So when I ask most people, what is the decision you are intending to enable the other party to make when you catch up with them for a coffee, most people look at me with a blank, you know, look on their face, because they actually don't go into a coffee or a lunch with an actual intention to enable a decision. So they have a very nice, pleasant conversation, but they actually don't enable any kind of decision. So by actually sending an email in advance of catching up, we start to already plant that seed in the other person's mind that, you know, we want to catch up, and the reason we want to catch up is to enable them to make a decision as to whether they see value in continuing to talk to you or not. Then the next piece is really the co-creation of the agenda. So to ensure our time's highly productive, could I get your thoughts on the following? What would be the best use of our time from your perspective? Which is a nice open-ended question. Is there anything specific you'd like me to come prepared? I thought you might be interested in X, Y, and Z. Is that of interest? So often they come with an assumption that the other party would be a bit interested in something. So I remember last year, James Deedy, he did this, and the client replied and said, I'm not interested in talking about that. I'm interested in talking about something else completely. And he said, you know, if I hadn't have done that preconditioning email, I would have showed up, and it would have been a really awkward conversation, and I would not have been able to help because I know nothing about that area of law. So what he was able to do is bring along one of his colleagues who is an expert, and, you know, he sat there and nodded and smiled, but, you know, really didn't add a whole lot other than to facilitate that meeting, which was a huge outcome for the client.
Yes.
And I must say, this process was something that Jim up in Sydney really grabbed a hold of, and he started getting great results when he started preconditioning before meetings. And it also helped him to feel more comfortable, to be a bit more assertive.
Good.
So that's something that also, you know, no doubt you've been to a meeting, scheduled a meeting, got to the meeting, and there's the person that you're meant to meet, and they have 2 or 3 or 4 other people that you don't know. And so I call those an ambush. And that's one of the things that can be prevented in most cases by actually asking, other than yourself, who else would be appropriate to bring along. Question number 5, what do you think about inviting your HR director or CFO? So you can actually suggest some people that they might want to bring along. So those are some of the things that often we can actually influence if we actually send this out in advance. So just pause there and ask what your thoughts are of that.
Well, it all makes sense, and it's while my style's not as formal as you said, but covering off those sorts of points, yeah, what you've got to do.
Yeah, and we can make that much more casual, the language. We can cut out, you know, it doesn't have to be 6 points. It can be just 1 or 2 dot points, but the idea is that we're going to have a much richer conversation, a better meeting if we've preconditioned it before and given them a chance to say, well, this is what I want to get out of our conversation, rather than make assumptions.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, so opening the meeting is often the other thing that I see people struggle with. So they don't actually set any kind of framework for the conversation, so it goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And so this is just a very simple 3-step process to structure the conversation. So starting off with stating what is, or agreeing what is the end in mind decision that you want them to make, want to enable them to make. Co-creating how you're going to get to that decision point, and then gain agreement and clarify the time. So making sure that we are, don't think that we've got an hour when we really only have half an hour, for example. So some just really simple things, but this, for a lot of people, adds a bit of structure so that they actually, they and the other party both know what they're there to achieve and also how they're going to go about spending their time together.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd probably add is, and maybe it tends to be the way I do it, is the icebreaker, the getting people comfortable with just each other.
Oh, yeah. Forgive me. So I usually say this comes, after you've built some rapport. So you've spent 5, 10, 15 minutes chatting about, the footy or whatever it is. And then there's that moment when you know, okay, now it's time to get down to business. That's when this comes in. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That's it, I think.
So then the other piece is closing out meetings. Often I've observed people struggle, and that's where they often leave some loose ends. So I often invite them to offer to summarize, 5, 10 minutes before the end of the meeting, summarize their understanding of what was discussed and check in. Did I miss or misunderstand anything? And then also then move on to agreeing on next steps. So Peter, I don't want to be presumptuous. We've talked about quite a bit of stuff. What do you see as the next steps? So I kind of throw it back into your lap as the client or potential client. And so that's something that people have found really helpful, because many of them shy away from actually getting some firm ideas in terms of the end in mind decision and agreeing on next steps. So that's just a quick run through of some of the things that we'll be covering, but those are some core concepts that I thought might be helpful for you just to be aware of, so that, when you hear, I guess it'll be, Frank and Rachel talking about preconditioning, for example, you now know what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. Good. I think it's good framework.
Great. Thank you. So I just wanted to ask, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm fine. You the process of engaging the process last year. This gives me some things to look for if there is that discussion. And I work with Rachel.
Yep.
Quite a lot more than Jim last year. So it'll be more front of mind.
Yeah. Great.
Good.
And I think we're just, while I've got you, we've rescheduled to catch up with your group for the new financial year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're
I'll-
busy, and we'll get into planning, and then it'll be part of that implementation.
Great.
I think we've got a date in July for memory.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I'm double check and I'll triple check that date for sure. Oh my God, I've shared that story with a few people. I said the 3 words you don't never want to hear from a client. Where are you? When Aaron called me, my heart sunk. I got that shot of adrenaline go through my body. I think, oh my God. And she said, no, we're all sitting here. And I'm like, oh my God, I felt so bad. So
Aaron, a couple of days before, I got this decline, and was that is that relevant, or have we put it off? And I said, no, that's nothing. So it's a bit deja vu. I must have had a vision there that it was going to happen. But
yeah, I really I just wanted to thank you again for being so generous in how you took that, because some people don't take it so well, but you were very generous, very generous in that.
it's something that look, it doesn't matter sort of in a sense when we do it. It's the main thing is to do it. And look, July, it was either going to be the start of the year or start of the new business plan. So
Yeah.
Will work, and we'll make sure we'll convert.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I understand you've got the partners conference kicking off. Is it tonight or tomorrow?
It's tomorrow lunchtime until Friday lunchtime. So,
Yeah.
This is our face-to-face sort of meeting. So it's all good. We're in the new offices as well, which are very pleasant.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen them.
This is the first time I've been here as well, but they're roomy, they're fresh and new, and
That's nice. That's great. Good. And how's your group going in terms of achieving your financial goals? Are you guys on track?
They've done a reforecast, so we're on track for the reforecast. We lost 2 or 3 people right at the start of the year, which means making top line was always going to be a struggle. So it's moved off $500,000. It's not a lot, but it's probably a little under 10%. At the bottom, but that difference between actual and original budget has dropped straight to the bottom line. With a small number of points, it has a material impact. So that's unfortunate. But so we're not as good at the bottom line as what would have liked, but much better than last year. But that had its own issues. So look, I'm confident that we'll get very close to budget by the end, but it's our busier periods are Q4, or busy quarters Q4. So I'm hoping a few things will go our way, and we'll get there. But we're not too far off it.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, well, great to see you, and thanks for your time today.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Okay, keep well.
You too. Bye.